And so I struggled in silence for probably a solid 2.5 years of how will I end myself? And my brain, that was the dangerous part, would tell me everyone would move on. They would recover from this. They would sort it out. And I didn't entirely understand all that was happening. So I believed that lie. I believed if today was the day, if I managed to pull it off, my mom, my dad, my brothers would all figure it out and we would be okay. Everyone would move on in a world that was one less issue. My name is Destiny. I live south of Calgary here. I was born into a Christian family, was raised under Christian beliefs right up until I was 10 and I was baptized. My true coming to the Lord happened when I was probably 15 or 16. And ever since then, I have been trying to live my life how the Lord would lead it. I have walked a life that the Lord has really always, I wouldn't say the Lord has thrown things at me, but life is life. I've lived a life. And in that, I've had a lot of mental health struggles that I would not have survived in a secular world. When I was baptized at 10, I was also going through some pretty extreme things in my childhood brain. And in that, I was ostracized by a lot of my peers and really struggled with how alone I felt in all this time. And so I had a period in my preteen, early teen years where I fell away from the Lord and I fell into some pretty severe depression, anxiety, and I lost myself. I off-gassed a lot of that by bonding with a family pet and treated that family pet as super close connection to me, to ended my day on a good note. And unfortunately, said family pet would die quite tragically directly in front of me, leading to a massive tank in my mental health, at which time I actually became suicidal. And I spent several years of my teen life coming home planning how I would kill myself. And in saying that, it's so hard to explain because I was also raised in the Christian church that told you if you killed yourself, that was unredeemable. There was no coming back. And so I would go home and be in this battle with myself and my brain of what am I going to become? What is there for me? And in that time, I never once prayed and never once went to the Lord to be like, I need this support, I need this help. And I shut myself down from myself, from others, from the Lord. And I know that I would have had support. I had my parents who were praying for me, and my mother has told me so many times that she was praying for me, that she was concerned and she knew I was going through something, but she hoped I would come to her. She hoped that I would be able to break out of this shell, this funk, and say, I need help. But I never did. And so I struggled in silence for probably a solid 2.5 years of how will I end myself? And my brain, that was the dangerous part, would tell me everyone would move on. They would recover from this. They would sort it out. And I didn't entirely understand all that was happening. So I believed that lie. I believed if today was the day, if I managed to pull it off, my mom, my dad, my brothers would all figure it out and we would be okay. Everyone would move on in a world that was one less issue. And when I was in high school, we were at lunch hour and I was walking past one of the washrooms and one of my classmates grabbed my arm and pulled me into this washroom, and there was probably 4 other girls. And it was at that moment one of the girls pulled up her sleeves, showed these marks and these cuts and these scratches, and she told us, I have a plan. After school today, I'm going to go and kill myself. And my classmates said, absolutely not. We're going to pray about this here and now in this washroom, and we're going to be there for you, in support of you. And so we all did. We all took turns and we prayed over her. And when it was my turn, the Spirit of God was poking at my shoulder, saying, hey, Destiny, you can't be talking right now. Because in my state, I was so numb to the world around me that I had just all the same thoughts and all the same considerations of ending it all. And that tap on my shoulder, I felt emotion. And I felt emotion so extreme for the first time in probably 2 years. I was just, I was, as some would put it, slain in the spirit. I was so overcome by this that I started crying and I started praying. And I don't think at that point that the prayer was even about my friend. I think the prayer was an outreach to God for me. And from that moment, the Lord took so much of this burden off my shoulders that I didn't realize I'd been putting on myself, this massive yoke that I was dragging and like burying myself in was gone. And I felt so extremely in that moment. I knew I was changed. And so I came back to the Lord, and I came back to my parents, and I went home that day and I said, I prayed, which wasn't out of the ordinary, right? I went to church every Sunday. I went through the cycles, and I said to my mom, I prayed. And over the next couple months, I went from numb and emotionless, unable to process anything that was going on in my life, to I would start crying if I was happy. And that was such an extreme toss-up that my poor father would go, I don't know how to deal with a teenage girl. What is happening? But over those next few months, I explained to my mom, I was in a low place. I wanted to die. And we went through the cycles. She told me I'd seen you hurting. I knew you were going through this. And I was praying for you. I just didn't know how to approach you, didn't know how to talk you through this. And to a certain extent, just wanted to see how you could sort this out yourself. And so the next few months, I got into grade 11, grade 12, I had to decide where I wanted to go with my career. And this salty part of myself that had been coming out of numb and I'm here out of spite to I am full of life and feeling all of these big emotions. I wanted to save people. I wanted to be there for people. So I decided I wanted to become a doctor. And I prepped myself. I did my research for how I was going to get into medical school. And I graduated. I thankfully came out of the full, I would have an emotional breakdown anytime I felt any extreme emotion. You wouldn't believe it by the way I'm crying over this interview right now, but I figured myself out, and this time it was through prayer and asking the Lord just to be there with me and help me sort out who I was, because there was so much time spent with me just waiting for it to end that now I'm 16, 17, and I have a whole life ahead of me that I don't want to lose. I have purpose and I want to help other people. So I started my university career and I was not successful. I had issues with my health. I had issues with my finance, and I was mad. I was mad at God. I said, Lord, we made it this far. Why can't you let this door stay open? Why must you close this door when I have made this goal for myself and I'm excited for something? And so I pushed and I fought back against the Lord until my third year of university, where I would inevitably hit the end of the road and my stubbornness would be hit with the university saying, you can come back when you are ready to. And I wasn't ready. So I fought against the urge to go into that dark place that I was as a teenager. And I said, Lord, what will you have of me? What are you going to offer for me? Because I'm angry and this is what I wanted for myself. And I don't know where to go from here because I built my life around, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to save lives. It's going to be spectacular. And you took that. And so I went catatonic and I didn't let myself go fully down that path, but I walked away. I said, Lord, I don't want to hear from you. But I worked at a summer camp, a Christian summer camp that last summer. And one of my coworkers had planted a seed that I didn't think would go anywhere because at the time that it was planted, I had, no, I would never. I'm not that person. I'm not going to do that because it's my way or the highway. And so I spent a month working, drinking, just doing anything but what I knew the Lord would want of me. And then one morning I woke up and that seed had sprouted. And that seed was, this is not the end of the path just because I'm not going to be a doctor. It was, there are other career opportunities. I can still be in the field that I want to be in. I can still save lives. And so I started looking into where I could go with what I have, with 3 years of university and a high school testimony of mental health issues. And I started looking at EMS because we get to be there with you in the worst instance, like the worst injury, the worst call of your life, and I'm there. And so I started my education, I went there, but this time around, rather than saying, it's my way or the highway, I started my daily prayer. Lord, thy will be done. The door that you will open, I will walk through. And I pray that you do not close it on me again. And so thy will be done was a daily mantra. I would get up, I would get ready for school, I would get ready for work, and it would be, Lord, thy will be done. I believe that the purpose you have for my life will bring great things, and I will bring healing to somebody who needs it. Sometimes that healing is ourselves, and so I made it. I became a primary care paramedic, and I thought, Lord, this door is wide open. I'm so excited. Thy will be done. I'm doing this through your guidance this time. I'm doing this prayerfully. And doing so, I believe that I can help and make a difference. And I believe that we as a church can help and make a difference in a world that is crying out for food, for answers, for clothing off of their backs. And we can be there, and we can be that light of God that shines upon the world and says, there is an answer, there is hope, and we are going to make it.